Hello and welcome to Thought for the Day for Wednesday, the 26th of April. And our reading today is Deuteronomy chapter 6. I'm reading from the New Living Translation. These are all the commands, laws, and regulations that the Lord your God told me to teach you, so that you may obey them in the land you are about to enter and occupy. And so you and your children and grandchildren might fear the Lord your God as long as you live. If you obey all his laws and commands, you will enjoy a long life. Listen closely, Israel, to everything I say. Be careful to obey. Then all will go well with you, and you will have many children in the land flowing with milk and honey, just as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, promised you. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands I am giving you today. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you're at home and when you're away on a journey, when you're lying down and when you're getting up again. Tie them to your hands as a reminder and wear them on your forehead. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. The Lord your God will soon bring you into the land he swore to give to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is a land filled with large, prosperous cities that you did not build. The houses will be richly stocked with goods you did not produce. You will draw water from cisterns you did not dig, and you will eat from vineyards and olive trees you did not plant. When you have eaten your fill in this land, be careful not to forget the Lord, who rescued you from slavery in the land of Egypt. You must fear the Lord your God and serve him. When you take an oath, you must only use his name. You must not worship any of the gods of the neighboring nations. For the Lord your God, who lives among you, is a jealous God. His anger will flare up against you and wipe you from the face of the earth. Do not test the Lord your God as you did when you complained at Massah. You must diligently obey the commands of the Lord your God, all the stipulations and laws he has given you. Do what is right and good in the Lord's sight, so that all will go well with you. Then you will enter and occupy the good land that the Lord solemnly promised to give your ancestors. You will drive out all the enemies living in your land, just as the Lord said you would. In the future, your children will ask you, what is the meaning of these stipulations, laws, and regulations that the Lord our God has given us? Then you must tell them, we were Pharaoh's slaves in Egypt, but the Lord brought us out of Egypt with amazing power. Before our eyes, the Lord did miraculous signs and wonders, dealing terrifying blows against Egypt and Pharaoh and all his people. He brought us out of Egypt so that he could give us this land he had solemnly promised to give our ancestors. And the Lord our God commanded us to obey all these laws and to fear him for our own prosperity and well-being, as is now the case. For we are righteous when we obey all the commands the Lord our God has given us. This is an incredible chapter in the Old Testament. It really sums up in many ways the covenant between God and humans. The covenant which God is still bound to today, that he will bless his people and he will protect them. And it's the covenant which so often we break today through our own disobedience and lack of faith, and that we fail to give him the due respect and the due worship that he deserves. The central verses of verse 4 and 5. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God. So the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. These famous words are in Jewish practice known as the Shema. Shema means hear. The call to hear what God is saying. Remember, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. The Shema is recited every morning by Jewish people. When they pray, these words are written in a little scroll which they wear on a little box on their forehead and on their arm. And often you'll see in Jewish houses a little scroll with these verses rolled up and put into the doorposts, the door frames of the house. These are the words which mark God's people. Hear, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. And love him with all your heart, your soul, and your strength. This is a great statement of God's complete uniqueness. Some say this is the heart of monotheism, that this declares that there is only one God, that all other so-called gods are false, and none compare. But this is a personal statement as well. The Lord is our God. That God is revealed as someone who wants relationship with people, and for us to be able to call him ours, just as he possesses our whole hearts and our whole lives, so we can lay hold of him and possess his promises and all the blessings of his covenant. When Jesus is asked the question, what is the greatest commandment? He quotes these words, love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your strength. And he adds, love your neighbour as yourself. This is the very heart of true worship and of a life lived for God. But there are three warnings about things which can take us away from this pure worship. The first is prosperity, verses 10 and onwards. Don't lose sight of God when you are blessed with riches, when your wealth is abundant, when you're able to meet your own needs without having to depend solely on him. And certainly in our materialistic age, perhaps that's why we're so distant from God, that we think that science or our bank accounts can solve any problem that faces us, that we do not really need faith or a belief in God to help us through. Science, riches are tools, but so often they become objects of worship in their own right within our own culture. And we can take our eyes off of God if we're not truly depending on him for guidance and direction in our lives. The second threat is not worshipping the gods of the neighbouring nations. Now, we may not be tempted to follow other gods, other religions such as Buddhism or Hinduism, but there are many things which are worshipped in our culture which God warns us against. Don't worship at the altars of prosperity, of fame, of celebrity. Be very careful that the spirit of the age doesn't invade the church so much that the spirit of God is pushed out. That God is a jealous God, that he is jealous for the worship of his people alone, that we're not to be double-minded or compromised, but we should diligently seek him and diligently seek to do his will. And the third thing that can take us away from worship of God is hardship. This reference here of Massa, when the people complained as they were wandering in the desert, Moses, why have you brought us out here? To die? What's this all about? Sometimes when hardship comes into our life, we can complain, God, this is not what I signed up for. You're not keeping up your end of the bargain. I thought I could trust you. But in such circumstances, our trust needs to go deeper. Deeper beyond the immediate circumstances that are facing us. And holding fast to the God who made heaven and earth is the same God who nothing in all creation will be able to separate us from his love. But his purposes and his will sometimes seems confusing and difficult to discern. But he is good. And he is trustworthy. And all his promises are yes in Jesus Christ. Holding fast, even despite difficult circumstances, to the faith that we profess. So, a challenge. Are we tempted to compromise or to step away from our worship of God, the Lord who is our God? Are there other things crowding in, occupying our time, our thoughts, our energies, demanding our material possessions, our wealth? Are there things which we're allowing to become idols in our own lives, which we need to lay down? Or are we beginning to lose hope? God's promises are always true and are never, ever broken. He is trustworthy, and we can rely on him in all things. Even when the way seems uncertain, in the valley of the shadow of death, God's rod and staff will bring us comfort. So today, I hope that's helpful. And remember, the Lord your God is a good God, worthy of all worship. So worship him with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength, with all of your allness, because he is the all in all. Amen. Bless you.